I'd wanted to write books for a very long time, but frankly I hadn't done anything about it. Partly because in my professional life I was working for a video production company, and I was writing thousands of words every week. I was writing proposals and pitches and voiceovers and full scripts, and that kept my writing arm busy, to be honest. But then in 2004 I noticed that the little free time that I had was spent going around exploring the local stone circles and castles and other sort of interesting sites like this, and I had the idea of writing a book called The Guide to Mysterious Perthshire. Now, I live in Perthshire, so it was the easiest, most obvious book to start with. And to be honest, I really didn't know what I was doing. So I made a number of errors along the way, but I was gathering material, and it took me 2 years to gather the material and put it into a form that I thought, well, this might actually be a proper book. And I then started approaching different publishers. And it took me about 6 months to get a publisher, and that was, I think it was fairly typical for people trying to get their first book published. I got a few knockbacks, but then one publisher said, yeah, we'll go for this. And what they said was, can you produce it within 2 months? And I said, yeah, of course I can do that. I had absolutely it was in an inchoate form, but I did produce it in 2 months, and I did deliver it, and that same publisher has just published my 18th book, so that came out in December 2006. So that was my very first book, was The Guide to Mysterious Perthshire, and it's still in print and it's still doing well. In 2006-2007 I wrote 3 books whilst I was working full-time as well, and then at the start of 2008 I became a full-time writer. And to show you how things have changed, as I said, the first book, that took 2 years to write, and now I'm doing somewhere between 5 and 7 books a year. That's fairly standard. So this year it's now July 2011. A few weeks ago Paranormal Glasgow was published, and about a month or so before that another book called Paranormal Perthshire came out, and Paranormal Dundee came out a couple of months before that. I've just today received the proofs for the next book, which will be a departure for me. It's called The Little Book of Glasgow. It's nothing to do with the paranormal or the strange, but it's basically 1001 trivial things you didn't know about Glasgow, and that's going to be out in the autumn. And at the same time I'm also writing a book called Paranormal Cumbria. That'll be out in 2012, and a couple of weeks ago I finished writing Haunted Dundee, and that'll be out at Christmas 2011. The first 3 books that I wrote, which were The Guide to Mysterious Perthshire, The Guide to Mysterious Iona, and The Guide to Mysterious Loch Ness, I did those whilst I was working full-time, and when those were published I then pitched 6 ideas to a publisher, expecting them to take up 1, maybe 2. As it happened, they said yes to all 6, and I realised at that point that something would have to change in my life, because if I carried on working full-time and writing that number of books, I would basically die. So what I decided to do was give up the job and become a full-time writer. So at the start of 2008, that's when I became that. And it's at that moment that I thought of myself as a writer. Previously I was someone who had a job but also wrote books on the side. And now I was a full-time writer, and I realised that's what I'm going to be doing 365 days a year.